Non-Americans of Reddit, what was the biggest culture shock you experienced when you came to the US advertisement in between the title credits of the show and the actual show? You guys have a lot of advertisements. In fact, so many ads. You forgot there even was a show. Netflix is a bliss. Everything being freaking huge. Literally. Road lanes, groceries, soda sizes, especially distances. Where I come from, 3 hours of driving are enough to cross half of the country. In the US it's just a small drive to go to see a relative or something. You can drive 11 hours in the US and only go from one state to another. Lawyer commercials, and if this happened to you, you can sue them commercials. There are two main reasons we have so many lawyers, and it's a big industry to sue people. Commercials were particularly obnoxious. As an American who recently drove through the South, why the frick are there advertisements on the gas pumps and why are they yelling? It had been 20 minutes since we got our appetizer, which we were having trouble finishing cause the portion was so huge, when a woman came up to our table and said, "Hello, I'm Sheila, the manager." And we were like, shoot, have we done something wrong? But no, she was there to apologize profusely for our main course being so late. We figured it would be another 15 minutes or so, which would be okay since we were struggling with the appetizer. But Nora, she was leaving, our food arrived. If that was back home, not only would the food be later than 20 minutes, there would be no Sheila to beg for our forgiveness. And definitely not if it was literally 10 seconds away. Oh man, this cracked me up so much. Food advertising everywhere. The portion sizes in restaurants are huge too. When we first arrived, and I walked up to a soda machine, we never had those. And I think I drank 10-15 refills of Coke before my parents started yelling at me. Unlimited soda, are you kidding me? WTF. Yeah, the portion sizes and free refills. The huge packaging units in the supermarket. Everything just big. The different kinds of flavors for beverages. I was overwhelmed by the sheer number of options. Just so you guys know, I enjoyed having multiple options. Until I came to the US, I had no idea I liked blue raspberry flavored soda, and I found out that I liked to mix different kinds of sodas from the fountain and make a cocktail soda occasionally. Edit. Also, I like how you guys have a shoot ton of flavors for your alcohol. I liked a lot of them, but to be honest, I didn't enjoy the whipped cream flavored stuff. Growing up, we called the mixing of sodas a suicide. Medical advertisements on TV. This was weird for me. When I go to the doctor, she tells me what medication I need, but all the ads say to ask my doctor to prescribe that medication. It's so odd. Could not walk anywhere, or take good public transport. Always had to take Ubers or hitch lifts. Everything was also huge. Cities, buildings, regular houses, food portions. It'd say people, but I did not see anybody who was hugely obese there. At least there was an insane amount of space just everywhere. As a European used to being crammed into every available nook, even in rural areas, the way that towns and cities just stretched out was unimaginable. Americans think that 100 years is a long time. Europeans think that 100 miles is a long distance. Edit. Yes, 100 miles is about 160 kilometers. The air conditioning, everywhere, and the little temperature shock between the inside and the outside of any freaking building. This reminds me, people really care about their teeth, like whitening and straightening. I was talking to a friend about hair transplants. I said it would be nice to get some balding, but I don't want to pay that much for something cosmetic. She says, everyone I met treated me like a long lost friend. Yay. I also experienced this. How early everything starts. School, work, 6 AM wake ups. That was hard. Some of us set alarms for 4 AM every day. Root beer. When non-Americans talk about root beer, I am reminded of this conversation from Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. Tipping. And not just tipping, but tipping so much that the entire thing I bought, e.g., a meal, is now in an entirely higher price bracket. Many of us in the US hate it as well. I'd prefer people be paid a living wage and not reliant on my generosity that is supposedly tied to their level of service, which it really isn't. Most people have a standard percentage they tip regardless of service. People pay for their own food. As someone who came from China, where everyone fights for the bill without the intention to pay, this is very refreshing. This is a generational thing, I think. If my parents are out with a group of folks their age, mid-60s, It's a whole thing that everyone wants to cover the check. The toilet doors, or lack thereof, not enough door. Seriously, you're a wealthy enough country you don't need to leave an inch gap at the sides and a foot and a half at the top and bottom. As an American, I too find it to be ridiculous. Your sugar has very little food in it, in my experience. Every time I travel to the States I find most Americans that I meet to be nice, friendly people. They get a bad rep on TV, social media. I agree with you. The time I went to US I normally would have a compliment for my outfit or something else per day. Guns. A friend of mine worked in Houston, Texas for 6 months. He invited me and I used the opportunity to travel to the US without paying for hotel and a rental car. His neighbor invited us to a small company party in the front yard of the company boss. We ate crawfish, very good, and after some beers I asked them if they own guns. 10 seconds later everyone pulled out their handgun and wanted to show it to us. For someone who was always into FPS games, this evening was really interesting but also really scary. In Germany I never saw a gun in real life. That day I learned also that they don't like to discuss gun laws. This made me chuckle. Not really a shock, but one thing that really surprised me was the sheer amount of flags. It was like almost every building had an American flag. Here in Belgium, if I see a house with a national flag I assume there's some kind of sport event going on that I didn't know about. Billboards. They are everywhere. You can go hours in the UK driving without seeing one. In Florida, I saw one every few minutes. Ads on TV. Motherfucker. Just play the show. This is painful. Traffic. How do people drive in the US? It's so easy to get caught in traffic. It's everywhere. Fricker, just drive. It's painful. ADDA fricking round about 7/11s are magical places though. Funnily enough, this can vary between states. Everything is sugar. The bread tasted like cake. The rolls from Subway were determined to be too sugary to be legally classed as bread in Ireland. Food portions. Turn right on red. Beautiful. I was walking down the street and there were some road workers doing something a bit ahead. When I got near them, one of them approached me and super kindly asked me to cross to the other side. Halted the traffic so I could cross and wished me a nice day as I went along. In my country they would probably heckled at me for not crossing. And I would told them to go frick themselves for not signaling things properly as I walked in the middle of the street potentially getting hit by a car. No sidewalks. Not everywhere, but outside of major cities, you often literally can't walk between places safely. Suez turtles and ninja turtles. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico but don't identify as one because I grew up with different cultural values. Children here often are told Americans are racists and that we are not wanted. When I went over to Virginia everyone treated me as an equal and with respect. I have light dark skin and slight curly hair. My beard is similar to those of an Arab man. I was scared at first but then I was like, wow, this is nothing like what you are told since early childhood. What the hell? People often stopped to say hi to me and asked how my day was. I was certainly impressed. This comment made me feel better about being an American. British here. The first time I visited the US I was 11. I heard a mum scream at her daughter, "Get your fanny over here." Fanny means vagina here. Face with tears of joy. Face with tears of joy. Face with tears of joy.